Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to my recap of Season 1, Episode 4 of She's Gotta Have It. This is one of my favorite episodes because it gives us another dimension of Nola. She's always portrayed as this woman who knows what she wants, is very resolute with her boundaries. She's not afraid to say no. She's a woman who's portrayed as someone who's very sure of herself. But we've only really seen Nola in the context of her friends very briefly. And then with her men, they each are so incredibly flawed that Nola seems like she has it together in comparison. Like, even though Jamie is much older than her, he's messy. Greer is incredibly narcissistic. And Mars rides his bike everywhere, and I don't even know what to call his speech pattern. Amongst the circle that Nola's been hanging out with thus far in the series, it seems like Nola is the one who kind of has it together. But you see Nola interact with Opal and then Rockaletta Moss, and you realize like she's really very young and quite immature. So episode starts with Nola sitting on the edge of her bed. She's still pissed about the way that her men reacted to her black dress. So she's taking a radical self-care break. No weed, no alcohol, no social media, and no penis. But she still will be having some loving. So now she's going to circle back around to a woman named Opal. Opal is a grown woman. Opal's older than Nola. She has her own business. She has a nursery in Fort Greene. Opal has a daughter. Opal says that 2 years ago, she and Nola dated for a while. Nola bailed on her. Nola has circled back around and Opal is single. The sex is good, so they wind up in bed together. I don't really know what qualifies as good lesbian brown sex, but everyone's moaning and everyone's coming, so I assume that means it's great. They definitely have great chemistry. Opal and Nola, I guess, are at a bookstore. Nola mentions that she wants to pick up something for Opal's daughter, but she doesn't have the money to buy a book. Wait, didn't you just pay $550 some odd for a dress? She tells Opal that she applied for this grant and money is coming and money is coming. A grant is not a guaranteed check, young man. Your money logic is a little funny. Nola also mentions that she has a teaching job. At the nursery, Opal asks Nola about the art show that she's participating in, the group show that Corinda put together. We get a sense here of what Nola is trying to do with her art. She wants to do creative work. She also wants to do work that is well recognized and critically acclaimed and purchased. She's not trying to be a struggling artist here. She mentions her boy Terrell, who's a fellow artist, that she wants to be more like him as well. And Opal is very turned on by Nola's ambition and the way that she dreams. She says as much later that that's part of what attracts her to Nola, that she used to be like Nola, but then she had Sky and she had to be more stable. Opal invites Nola to dinner. She's like, oh no, I have to go to this thing for my boy, and then I have to go to therapy. Nola goes to therapy, and when talking to Dr. Jameson, she just gushes about Opal, about how Opal makes her feel safe, and Opal doesn't ask her for anything, and she feels like she can be her full self, and you know how wonderful Opal is. And I wonder if she's attracted to Opal or if she admires Opal. Do you actually want to be with her or do you want to be her? Dr. Jameson is like, okay, like this is new because for the last couple weeks we've been talking about the 3 men in your life and now there's a woman. How exactly are you defining yourself? Nola says that she's a sex positive, polyamorous, pansexual. Girl, what? You're a bisexual feminist who likes to fuck. Just say that, because that's too much terms for half the people. The stuff you talking about, you going next level. Nola seems like a kid around Opal, but the same way that like Mars seems like a little kid around Nola, Nola seems like a little kid around Opal. She has that like nervous young 20-something energy, like I'm here, I'm there, I'm here, I'm there. And Opal has that like 30-something, like I'm good, I can stand still right now without having to be like darting all the time. Nola says she doesn't care about a person's sex, that she judges her attraction on whether she's into the person. One thing that she's really into about Opal is family. Nola, who loves being single and loves her freedom and loves her options, Nola loves the stability of family life. Like, she loves that Opal has a daughter. She's like, oh, it's like a ready-made family and I never have to have stretch marks. That's one way of looking at it. She feels like she has room to be herself with Opal. And she says that she doesn't feel like she's always on the defense with her, that she's always fighting back against some perception. She feels like Opal just gets her and allows her room to be herself. That's not what I see from Opal. I think Opal's like very possessive. Opal gets jealous. She takes little jabs at Nola about her choices. Oh, and here's where your girl really lost me. So Nola goes through this whole therapy session, and the therapist at the end is like, all right, well, how would you like to pay it today? And Nola's like, oh, I don't have any money. Can I just like barter with you? I could paint you something. Ma'am, if you don't have no money, that's something you need to work out before you have someone perform services for and with you. Like, what are you doing? Nola goes to a retirement party. It's for her friend Terrell's father, the painter that she mentioned earlier. His parents been married forever. They're Caribbean. They don't know that their son is gay, which I'm like, really? No, Terrell actually has a whole fiance named Stefano that Nola eventually finds him making out with later in the party when she runs up on them and she's drunk. And she was like, yeah, but if I didn't drink, your parents would have thought I was an alcoholic. What? Terrell asked Nola, how you going to be drunk and you got a job in the morning? And she was like, oh yeah, it's just a day job though. But ma'am, is it a paying job? Nola lays into Terrell and she was like, oh, you should tell your parents that you're gay. And he was like, yo, I'm Caribbean. My parents aren't trying to hear that. And they might disown me if I tell them I'm gay. He was like, ma'am, you have 3 men and 1 chick. You freak out at the word commitment. Stop. You will not be trying to tell me how to live my life and who I should come out to and when. Absolutely not, ma'am. And plus, like, how are you, this woman who can't commit, because apparently this is the worst thing in the world, how are you to tell me that I should conform to what you think when you don't conform? I ain't like the way he said it, but he had a point. It's really interesting that people's outrage about what Nola does isn't just that she has sex with multiple people. It's that she has no plans to commit to any of them. Terrell judges her. He's like, you can't commit. You're just out here having the sex for no reason, just for the pleasure of it. Like, oh, the whore. Ooh, and he calls her greedy too. I don't think she's greedy. I think she's single. We're really not as evolved far beyond other cultures that we call oppressive. We're not really as far evolved beyond them as we think we are. Just FYI. Nola walks home drunk, which I'm like, man, where are your friends? Uber isn't running in Brooklyn right now in the year of our Lord 2017. I don't understand why. Oh, because you're broke. You can't be walking around drunk in the street. I'm not saying if something happens to you, it's your fault. I'm just saying, like, bae, people are crazy. You gotta protect yourself. She gets home and she realizes that she doesn't have her keys. Papo is next door, annoying the white lady that's really annoying. And I understand why she's annoyed. I like Papo. I think he's like of no harm. He just, he's homeless. He needs a place to stay. And so he hangs out in a place that he's familiar. But if I paid like 1.5 mil for a brownstone, no, I would not want a homeless man hanging out on my stoop, blasting his music all hours of the night. So I feel the annoying white lady's frustration. Nola gets home. She doesn't have her keys and she decides she's going to walk to her parents' house. Papo is like, it's late. He could tell she's a little tipsy. He says he'll walk her home. I was really scared something was going to happen to her, even though like Papo's a friend. And when she got to her parents' door and then was like, oh, actually, I don't want to wake them up. Like, I'm just going to, figure out something else. I was like, girl, what are you doing? Why won't you just go in your parents' house? She was like, oh, I don't want to seem like, I need to be an adult. I need to get my ish together. Well, yeah, you can do that in the morning when you find your keys. You're drunk. Go inside. Instead of going in her parents' house, Nola calls Shemeka, who doesn't answer. Shemeka's at the Hot and Trot doing rehearsals. She calls Clorinda, who is getting her back blown out by some old white man. It sounds like it could be good, but I feel like if the sex is really that good, you're not answering the phone. This is weird. She doesn't want to call any of the men because she don't want to deal with their BS. So she ends up calling Opal, who turns out to me, because Nola didn't seem to see it, to be everything that Nola complained about with the boys. She shows up at Opal's house. It's pretty late. She's drunk. Opal's like, oh, you're calling me. I thought you were out with one of your men. So she's got the same jabs that all the guys that Nola dates make about her seeing other people. And she's like, no, I told you I was out with Terrell and he's gay. And she was like, oh, well, maybe he goes back and forth the same way you do. Ma'am. She tells Nola to take off her shoes so she doesn't wake up Sky. Nola proceeds to stumble and make a whole bunch of noise into the house. She gets to the bathroom. She makes this huge deal about like Hello Kitty. And I'm just like, everything you're doing right now is so unattractive. The last recap, I said something about how unattractive it is to women when guys are drunk. Watching Nola drunk, I was like, yeah, I'm glad I stopped drinking. And Opal doesn't judge her. She doesn't judge her about her drunkenness. This is a grown lady's house. She got a halfway grown daughter. And you stumbling in the house drunk, making a whole bunch of noise, waking up the dead, bringing in stinky art. Girl, what are you doing? I get why Opal could be attracted to Nola, but I also get why she would be like, too. We meet Opal's daughter in the morning. Sky is the cutest little thing. So grown, vegan. Really, Brooklyn? These new wave kids. Very precocious child. More mature than Nola. Like, she knows the routine. She was like, oh, my mom only lets people stay over when it's serious. Nola does a whole family thing with Sky, and she really seems to enjoy it. When Opal comes back from her run, they head out the house as one big happy family, and Sky asks Nola that she can come back later that night because she wants to hang out with her some more. And Nola's like, yeah, I'm down. Are you? This is interesting to me. There's let me figure out how to say this right. Nola's been dating these 3 different dudes and has no interest in commitment with any of them whatsoever. With Opal, it's different. Is it that you're really more into women than you are into men? Is it that Opal is actually the full package you've been looking for, as opposed to these 3 dudes that are horribly flawed? She's falling into the regular ways of a relationship very easily with Opal in a way that she fights very hard against with the guys that she's seeing. So I'm like, is it that Nola doesn't want to commit, or is it that Nola doesn't want to commit to those particular men, or is it a man in general? Despite what she said in therapy about who she dates and what she's into. She's like, I never hang out with anyone, and now I'm here with you. Nola mentions that she, again, has to be at work, and again, doesn't have her keys and needs to get into an apartment to get her lesson plan. She decides instead she's gonna like hang out with Opal at her job. Nola's talking to Opal about how she never hangs out with anyone that she's seeing the morning after, when who would walk up but Greer. Nola doesn't seem to see it, but everything that she complained about with the guys that she's seeing, Opal also does the same thing. Greer walks up. Opal low-key confronts him, like she stands up and makes her presence known. Nola diffuses it and Opal walks off, but she's none too pleased that she wasn't introduced as someone that Nola was seeing. After Nola talks to Greer, which just him and his narcissism, he's like, how long is this fast gonna last? When can I see you again? I don't understand why you're not into me. Like, boy, bye. But Nola explains to Opal, she was like, look, it's not personal. I just don't put my business out there when it comes to who I'm seeing. I don't like people knowing who I have in my loving bed, which I respect. Nola's big job is teaching art to middle school students at a local public school that is underfunded. Nola shows up 15 minutes late, and she just barges into the classroom despite there being a teacher in the front of it, and just starts talking. Said teacher would be a woman, a grown woman by the name of Rockaletta Moss, who has no time for Nola's foolishness. She calls Nola out in front of the students. She lets her know that the only reason I'm letting this slide is because art education is important to these students, but you need to do better going forward. The kids are looking at her like she's crazy because this program, it might be in an underfunded school, but Rockaletta Moss runs a tight ship. These kids are used to discipline, order, and being on time, which Nola clearly is not. So she was like, oh, none of you guys have ever been late? And the kids just look at her like, ma'am, we're not doing this with you today. Nola doesn't seem to have made it to the house because she doesn't have a lesson plan. She just shows up and she's like, yeah, we're gonna wing it. Nola tells the little girl, she was like, oh, well, why don't you draw on me? And the girl's like, well, can I draw on your hair? Apparently this all goes really well because Nola goes home to her mom and she's gushing about her first day at school. Her mom has an additional key for her house. She literally gives it to Nola, who puts it around her neck like a little latchkey kid. Nola, girl, you walking around like a 10-year-old. Oh, did Nola tell her parents about the assault? I know she told the guys in her life, but I'm like, I don't know if she ever said anything to her parents about it. I wonder what that's about. Nola gets home to find Miss Ella waiting for her. Miss Ella is none too pleased. Nola is a couple weeks late on the rent. When grown-ass Miss Ella calls her out about being late, Nola's like, oh, yeah, I'm not getting my deferment from my student loans anymore, so my money's different. Ma'am, that ain't your landlord's problem. Ain't nobody trying to hear you just don't have it. Folks got bills. You got bills. You might not care about your bills, but other people care about theirs. Nola's upstairs painting when she remembers that she hasn't checked her mail. She does a little breeze through and she finds a letter from the folks that she pitched the grant to. And as it would turn out, she is moved to the second round of her grant. Nola gets super excited. She's got on these overalls and she jumps up and down. And there's this amazing aerial shot of her like jumping and kicking her legs up and landing on her back. And it's really adorable. But it's also something that like 3-year-olds or 5-year-olds or 7-year-olds do. And that's not to say that, as a grown woman, you can't get excited and go jump on your bed. But the imagery of it and the stuff that Nola's been doing, it's like you're like a big kid. Nola shows up at Opal's house. She was supposed to be there. I don't know if there was a set time, whatever appropriate time it was to show up. Nola has missed it by far. She was supposed to hang out with Sky. Opal's pissed when she gets there. She was like, it's one thing to be on CP time. It's another thing to forget about people. Somehow, on the heels of that discussion, Nola decides this is a great time to tell Opal that she wants to be in a relationship with her. Where is this coming from? What's changed? Is it because you're realizing you're really immature and you need an adult in your life? Or is it my theory from earlier that you don't necessarily want to be with Opal, you want to be Opal, and you think that like by proximity that will rub off on you somehow. Whatever it is, Opal's not here for her shenanigans. Opal's a grown-ass woman. Like, she has boundaries of which she will and will not accept. So that's that. I liked Opal. I thought she was dope. And I totally get why she didn't want to date Nola, because she too grown for that. I'm not really even sure Nola even really understands what just happened. But like, she basically told you to get the fuck out. And then Nola like tries to kiss her and then like kiss her the cheek. And then Opal just ain't giving her nothing. She ain't even give her like the friendly mwah mwah. Yeah. So that is my recap of episode 4. Let me know what you thought of the show. As always, thank you for watching and I'll see you soon. Oh, please subscribe.